Happy 4th of July from Area 51, Savannah. Morcourt channel here. And just thought I would try to describe my interpretation via macro interpretation of what's actually going on in my life these days. Since I'm still here, shocked that I am, because I thought I would have been rescued by now, but like Castaway, people know I'm here, but they seem to, there's a constant battle to keep me captive in this state of low existence, in order, because of the possibility that I could create some sort of who knows? There's all sorts of theories, but I do a lot of work on Twitter and Facebook because I should be writing this as books and publishing as books and capitalism making money off of it, but instead I've been here so long, and I think I'll probably die in captivity, so I'm trying to preserve it for history, and hopefully they won't be able to bury me. One day, hopefully somebody will uncover the thousands of pages that I've documented of my life and existence and what's going on, and the theories as to why, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. So on 4th of July, I'm going to discuss the star factory in my theoretical estimation. The star factory is basically creating an army of idols, and I think what has happened is, because I'm Louis from Louisiana, and they've tapped into me to supercharge, superpower, supersize these idols. And they've created an army of idols that are just a swarm attacking the world for freedom. But in actuality, there's all sorts of methods behind it, what's going on. The Star Factory, as you would, I think it deals with, they use the law as a way to transfer power. Law being so powerful and everything. And they use history especially. So since my stepfather paid for my college degree, then I owe that, and then therefore they tap into, he's got 3 kids that are KC initials, the KC Royals Idol Factory. And it powers, I mean, it's all sorts of idols. There's celebrities, and nowadays there's just even more and more celebrities. And money seems to be the equalizer. One way to validate an existence, to make something real, is to give it money. If somebody has money, they're real. And so the United States now, 25% of the global GDP, which is insane. It's been charging up and charging to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, hiding behind the banner of free market capitalism, which just turned predatory in my estimation. And the world just can't keep up, and the media hides this factor that there's a global domination going on. So the world just kind of keeps plodding along. And the United States has all this cash, and they go around the world and they buy up everything they can. So anything that's worthwhile, it's like Citizen Kane. It's a collector. The United States, its army of wealthy, and then you've got the army of idols. And it creates, they go around the world and they buy up everything. And then again, there was always, the United States has always had an inferiority complex to the aristocracy and royalty of Europe. And Europe has old blood history and culture and architecture and all that. So the United States counteracts that with tons of cash. So now the United States buys up everything. And Europe has done a decent job of keeping up. But other continents like South America is like 7% of the global GDP in an area that's much larger. And the United States is 25%. So anything, and it just so happened it coincided at this perfect time. These technology companies have grown just into these massive gargantuan behemoths, and they have all this cash. So they basically shop around the world. So if there's any good ideas, they pay off some people, and it's nice to get a check for your hard work. But instead of growing new technology companies in these nations that need jobs and stability, they buy the ideas, move it to America, then turn it into a billion-dollar unicorn if it's a good enough idea. And that's capitalism, but it's turned predatory, and it's not good. I'm looking at this from a perspective from the entire globe. The globe is in serious trouble. Free market capitalism has not solved the global issues. There's still a huge, and it's like America. America has rich and poor, and the globe has rich and poor nations. And there is no global governance. The world doesn't even have, like the United States has, a government. The world has the United Nations, which is basically crisis management for anything that goes wrong. And they're creating more problems than they're solving. I wrote a novel in 2001 when I was almost homeless in Baton Rouge. I used to ride a neighbor's bike to the library from Government Street over near Catholic High to the Independence Park Library, and I would type in, and I would go to the library and sit there for 30 minutes at a time and type. Not only that, I was looking for jobs to escape because I think they were trying to push me off the grid and eliminate me. It was murder by suicide. How low can I go? After I was genetically hacked, they had screwed me, and they wanted to bury me before the internet allowed for me to do any research. And I've done the research now, and there's motive for burying me. But I survived. I got a job in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, luckily, and escaped. And I'm here in Savannah, but I'm still stuck in this low existence, the Star Factory, as you would, the KC Royal Star Factory. And I think it goes back to the Brew Cruise. And there's all sorts of this coincidental, coordinated, circumstantial, I don't even know. It's like a magic power, but there's all sorts of coincidences or synchronicity to it, but it, in my theoretical estimation, it's just creating these idols. KC Royals is so what they've done now is me. I'm a highly credible artist for a long time. I've gotten enough work. I've got now when you factor in all the work I've done online. I never did write as much as I'd like because of my ADHD, and being medicated took away my drive, so I have writer's block. But so I never did. It took me a long time to work into being a good writer, but I finally got to an area that I consider myself to be a good writer, and I could have been one of the great writers if I would have been properly managed. And I have been horrifically managed. I've never been in a good situation. I've never found the right medication mix. I've never had an editor. I've never had an agent. I've never had the right setting to accomplish what I wanted to. And I've proven myself as a good enough writer. And I've got a good enough idea guy. My music festival film project is a really good idea. I know that. and I wrote 55 pages of novelization for it, and I'd like to write the script. I need some help with that. So I'm trying to sell this piece, and it should sell. It's a good enough idea. It really has billion-dollar potential. I'm looking for a project where it has a recurring festival like Bonnaroo or Coachella every year, and it would only reinforce the cult classic status of the. And we could even do sequels of the film, doing that second, because I've basically taken 10 to 20 intertwining plots of interesting plots, and I'm trying to intertwine them from many different perspectives of what goes on at a music festival. Then you factor in music and put together a killer soundtrack with a good mix of bands, and it's got real potential and marketability on a lot of levels. You could make money on a lot of levels. So it has billion-dollar franchise potential, and it could be a recurring project that every year had soundtracks released, and every year you could actually do sequels to it for a while, and the festival itself would keep recurring and keep validating the brand name. So it's a fabulous idea, but I sent off a couple of things to some agents that I know of, people I know that I would be interested in working with on there. I just need somebody. I can't get into the right hands. That's one of the reasons I'm stuck in this low level. And I'm known online. My Twitter feed, I'm known, but it's not a real. It's trying to make that jump between reality and reality, my reality to another reality where I can realize making some money. And I have to come up with theories as to why I am still here or why my life was sabotaged. And it goes back to the synchronicity, celestial synchronicity. It started with Duck Soup, the Marx Brothers. My grandfather had 6 brothers, the Marx Brothers. And I'm not saying it's a celestial notoriety. We owned a mercantile in a rural area of Louisiana, and I'm sure it has to do with the name Marx also being such a prominent historical figure. Then You Bet Your Life. So what it basically did was me being I never understood this, but I was living in hostile areas, because the South is very hostile, especially it's a Jewish name, and I'm 1/4 Jewish, and Catholic on the other side. Then You Bet Your Life with Groucho, and so they basically painted a target on my back, so they wanted to hang me on the wall, and we got moved to Texas, and that was the whole scenario, and I was hacked, genetically hacked to be shrunk down. They basically tried to shrink me down. In my theoretical estimation, the Star Factory, as you would, the Idol Army, deals with extracting power from me, or I'm just a drill bit into a sort. I think it goes into the Catholic world, and I think we extract power from the Catholic world, and they use me as a mainframe insert to hack, or a drill bit into a pool of oil or a pool of energy, and magic energy, as you would. So they go, and it ties into, and there's all sorts of these coordinations. 414 is a big deal. South by Southwest, 6x69 is 414. Milwaukee is 414. There was actually a famous group of hackers in the 70s and 80s, or I can't remember when, from Milwaukee that called themselves the 414. And this is a giant hack. And this goes back to when I was in high school. Then they have, I don't know how I discovered this, but Kansas City City Hall is at 414 12th Street. So what they're, in my estimation, is I think they were trying to offer one for all, Musketeers. Um, there's 1111, 4 1s, Louisiana Street in Houston, Center Point Energy. Musketeers are the Xavier Musketeers are in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, if you look at Louis and Anna is what Louisiana means. 513. Louis is 5 letters. I is 1 letter. Anna is 3 letters. 513 is Cincinnati. Miracle. And these are all just stupid coordinations, but my life is so screwed up, and I just had to come up with theories. And if it's not real, then it's really compelling coincidence that will make good filler for my book of my life. If I could ever, but I want to make money off of it. Try to gain some of the, I don't want to be a ghost pirate, that's what Savannah's new hockey team, affiliated with the Golden Knights of Vegas, the Ghost Pirates, because I am indebted to this doctor who is an outsider, who is the head of the family, but I'm not allowed to pay off these debts. I think because debt law around the world is a huge deal. Australia was founded as a debtor's colony. There were debtors' prisons, so it's a huge deal. But I think it's done on the down low, and they just factor me in plug me into these schemes to extract power using the debt law as the validation. So I'm not allowed to make real money. And I've got a lot of good ideas. I've got an idea for a website that has billion-dollar potential, at least to make millions. And I can't get it off the ground. I'm stuck at such a low level of existence. I always have been such a low level. I've always been an idea guy. I just recently wrote pages of my existence post-college about how I wanted to start a music festival with Widespread Panic and Fish. And that was right before Superfly of New Orleans, a group of guys formed Bonnaroo, and it's been a huge success. And now they did Vegusa in Vegas, and they do Outlands in San Francisco. But I've had really good ideas. I tried to start a music company. I tried to start a Louisiana Renaissance, where it would turn it in Louisiana into like the next Seattle, launching some major bands and a major art scene. This was all at post-college. But I had no help. That's what I put in there. I've never had any help. Any competent minds to work with. So I'm stuck here in Savannah, and I'm alone most of the time, which drives me batty because I have an overactive mind. And I'm stuck in this star factory, and the history is going to be a cruel judge because they have Savannah College of Art and Design. And my sister actually works there, but my sister doesn't have anything we see each other, but she doesn't want to know about any of my projects or anything like that. She puts very little credibility because I have been blacklisted by Los Angeles and New York. I've been trying to get an agent for so long and sell some projects. So I've been discredited. There's a discreditation because I can't get anything accomplished because I can't get off the ground. And I don't know to what extent there's always conspiracy as to who knows what. I know the media knows I exist. But I don't know to what extent. It's hard these agencies are like castles, and to break into them. I use Twitter just to try to get with CAA and WME, so I know somebody there knows me, but I don't know how high up it goes or anything like that. But it should be enough to break. I mean, I've got enough good ideas, not to mention mostly I put on there about my Louisiana Latin American Economic Evolutionary Conference, like World Economic Forum or Aspen Ideas or stuff like that, to try to launch, which is a good idea. I could use I wanted to partner with a talent agent, but then that would open up doors for me to be able to sign, to get sell, to make some money. I just can't make any real money. I've always been I've been alone most of my life, adult life. When I had people around me, it was people that didn't have business. I've never been around competent minds. I would probably be a billionaire by now if I had been surrounded by competent minds. And who knows what kind of global leader I could be. But I've been surrounded by incompetent, or not incompetent, just I don't the people that don't think like me. I think like I've got I think like big picture ideas and stuff like that. I'm very entrepreneurial, and I just can't meet the right person. But I don't have any credibility, tangible credibility. So it's really frustrating to not be able to accomplish anything. Let's see, sacrificial lamb. That's how I feel on this 4th of July, stuck in Area 51 as you would, because and they plug me in using the Catholic Empire, global empire, magic power to power their army of idols and and create wealth. This this entanglement system of plugs and things created QE. So it worked. The ransom that they got, the QE created a ton of wealth. When I was living in Aspen, Obama got elected. So the wealthy were patriotic, especially the wealthy Jews in Aspen who control. I'm not saying that the talent agencies are all Jewish, but there's a lot of them there. So they relegated me to menial existence there. And then QE happened, and it made all these rich people got a lot richer and made a ton of wealth. One of the biggest bull markets in the history of the stock market was because of QE, which was a bribe to the wealthy to stay loyal. I think there was I don't know if there was fear that I was going to. I've always been in favor of monarchies. I think we need monarchies as a balance of power to the democracy. I think, and democracy has gone way out of control. Look at the debt crisis around the world, and it's because democracy and political parties, there's an insane hatred between the political parties, and they have to work together, and they refuse to because they're so polar opposites on their views. It's just such a wide spectrum of hatred that now you've got the debt crisis. They've got to one of these days decide to pay off the debt, which is going to be a huge undertaking. The debt in the United States is $91,000 per citizen, which is monstrous. I mean, you're telling me everyone in the United States is going to pay off $91,000? Majority of people don't have. They say half the country doesn't have $500 if an emergency happened. You know, most of the people don't have it. There's a lot of wealth, and I think they'll probably end up taxing the wealthy, and the wealthy will probably jump ship. Who knows? But it's all speculative. But democracy needs a balance. And I'm not saying that the monarchs of Europe, they don't really do anything. They've slowly had their power whittled away by, and I think that has to do with the United States. I'm writing this Sun Tzu, Art of War, Machiavellian Prince strategy. And I think there's a war going on. The United States declared war on Europe. And in order to validate the existence of the dollar as a melting pot, they've tried to brainwash Europe to become a melting pot. And this is all theoretical, paranoid but it's strategy. It's deviant, but it's possible because if you look at what's happened. So in the next 20 to 50 years, because of the changing demographics, at one time when Europe, they were a nationalistic, genetic identity. They had camaraderie, which created kindness towards each other because of nationalism, and they became socialist. But now that you've got and the United States shows that diversity breeds hate, especially when you factor them into political demographics, parties. So I think in the future you're going to see Europe turning into the United States, and they're going to have a lot of the problems that the United States has, like crime, housing problems, unemployment. Uh, there's already been a huge upsurge in right-wing nationalist parties that were no, they didn't have any ground 10, 15 years ago. Now they're Marie Le Pen got 40% of the vote in the last election. She was at 15% 10, 15 years ago. So I mean, there's been a huge change, and it's only going to. And I had the theory that it was the hippie melting pot media revolution that is tenderizing Europe. I think the United States is trying to eat Latin America, or they're eating the best cuts of meat out of Latin America, and they dominate the whole all of Americas. And then I think the main course is European steaks that are being tenderized, and it's all in an effort to fight China. But there's still the steering the planet with superpowers fighting each other is asinine. It's just crazy. We need a strong global governance, without a doubt. There needs to be, and the book I was talking about earlier, I mentioned, was a global government that had its own spy agency, it had its own army. If you were in the army, and I don't know if it would be just for officers or if it'd be for everybody in the enlisted men. If you were served in the global army, you could go live anywhere you want. You'd get a carte blanche passport. If you, let's see, there was a economic development team that would go around the world to these countries and build incubators to help them grow to sustainable levels. Because half the world is in just terrible shape, and they can't compete with the what's going on in this and with these massive conglomerate countries. There was a Supreme Council of Planetary Evolution. The cat. And Supreme Council of Planetary Evolution, and that would basically try to raise levels of consciousness for the planet in order to solve a lot of problems and address the issues for the future, rather than just free market capitalism, play it as it lies, rip it and grip it sort of mentality. They were coming up with a plan for the planet with some of the great thinkers of the world. And the problem is, I came up with the idea for a Supreme Council's of evolutionary growth in Louisiana. The problem is, politicians will try to inject themselves into anything. They're like a disease. They're like the Matrix Smiths. They try to take over everything. They want to be a part of it, whereas I don't. I would rather have especially because of how detrimental political parties are to the whole world. Right? They're just they're one of the worst things in the world right now. So find people without political affiliations, which is difficult in this day and age because of all the problems that the political parties have caused. And we haven't even seen the worst of it yet. I'm predicting a global debt crisis. Whenever the world wakes up and says, all right, we have to pay off, it's supposedly 240 trillion in global debt. Whenever they decide, how are we going to pay this off? Then formulate a plan with the politicians working together, even though they hate each other, then cutting entitlement programs and raising taxes in order to balance the budget and pay off the debt. There's going to be a huge economic downturn, in my estimation. It's going to make the toxic asset bubble look like nothing. I mean, it's a monster problem that politicians don't even address. All they're concerned about is, let's just see what they get their time in the spotlight. They're going to do what they keep spending and spending and spending, and both sides are guilty of it. But eventually somebody has to wake up and say, that's what I was saying, we need a rise of a new sort of leader in the world. whether it be rise of kings or queens or Caesars or military people or something like that. And there needs to be checks and balances. A strong centralized global governance would help keep atrocities from happening in case they went off the deep end. So I mean, there has to be some. And we're at a technological rising sun, dawning world with where there's checks and balances through illumination. So, trying to figure out exactly what direction the planet goes, there has to be something. Let's see what else I have. Oxymoron of sacred equal voters and political gods. Oh yeah, the system is made up of this whole notion that sacred equal voters and the whole notion of equality to create these political gods that create the law, but it's turned into Better Call Saul law, personal injury law out there, where you're worth something if you get injured just because of the whole notoriety, the whole notion of the legal system is so corrupt. Then you've got free market capitalism, which is turned predatory, and this greed is good. We don't share it all. There's no equality involved in that, and they want to produce enough wealth for world domination. The military is antiquated now because of the hippie melting pot media revolution. So now you can't use the military, but economic war is still okay for now. If the lights ever come on, the United States is going to look pretty bad as being very belligerent economically. They're going to blame it on free market capitalism, but they're exploiting it. They're turned predatory. The QE was a weapon at a key, like I was saying earlier, at a weapon at a key technological time. It created a bunch of these huge conglomerates which could go around the world and buy up assets and that's a way of conquering nations. If you buy up the best assets or buy up the economic means of viability, and it bought loyalty for the wealthy, made them patriotic, because now you're 25% of the global GDP after this huge uptick. And the growth, it goes back to basically when I was put into the Caldwell Zoo. The United States made a huge push, and the Catholics don't have a clue that they were a threat. I think honestly that's one of the reasons. There was a Little Caesars I worked at when I was a senior in high school, and I was dim. It was a dumb job because it was another way of painting a target on my back. So abort the possible competition. So basically, they figured out ways to handicap and hack me to keep me small and distributing power. I have parasites, and I live in a sensory deprivation bubble, so any way I try to do to grow bigger or to escape is basically sent off to somebody else as a bribe to keep me buried. It's absolutely insane, but who knows? It's interesting fodder for history to ramble over, unless there's a way to bury it. I've done enough tweeting to international people but you never know. The American empire pays off everybody, and they use economic power to quiet people. So there's a very real possibility that I could be erased from history, even though I should be one of the most important thinkers of my generation. And I can't even get an agent or anything like that. It's just asinine. Sacrificial lamb, fear of Little Caesars rising up. Guns to the head, short financial lease, alienated, got that. The machine of patriotic loyalty. Yeah, on this 4th of July, And political parties are responsible. They're very patriotic because they can't exist outside of the realm of the United States. So the wealthy can jump ship, and they can take their money and move to England or move to Europe or move to Asia or to wherever they want to move. And I called for years ago to protect the wealthy while I was living in Aspen, to build a string of 15 to 20 or how many ever principalities like Monaco or the United Arab Emirates, and put global banking centers with branches in each of these things. I wanted to build one in Louisiana, a principality within the shore, annex some land and build something like Monaco or the United Arab Emirates. It would be good for the state, but they'd fight against it because they have small minds. And I wanted to turn Aspen into a global banking principality while I was living there, and make it like a private community, and annex it. And this string of banking principalities, the problem is it offers options for the wealthy, and the government doesn't want the wealthy to have options. The wealthy weren't smart enough to see me as an ally, so they buried me. That's basically what I was talking about all this right at the beginning of QE. So the wealthy were getting paid off. Obama was codified all the New York and LA Jews to keep me blacklisted from talent agents, so I couldn't grow up and escape. They don't want me out of the country for some reason. I'd like to leave the country. I'd like to visit, travel, but there's a lot going on, and a lot of things I could accomplish, but I'm not allowed to leave. I think that lends credibility to the fact of this star factory, this idle army factory that I power, used as a drill bit, and the cash machine validator. Like I said, cash is validation. I have no validation because I have no cash. I have no tangible credibility, success. So people ignore me. That's the only thing Savannah has going for it. Even though I've come up with some brilliant ideas, several big picture ideas that could be worth billions of dollars. My website and the festival project, not to mention my literary career. This making a book out of Twitter could be huge, millions of dollars there. I've got several other books that are ready to go into publication. I've got several other films that could go into production. So I mean, I've got billion-dollar potential, but I have no tangible credibility, and people see it and I'm too old to not have any tangible credibility, and that's kind of why it's that's the only saving grace. I don't know. They don't allow. I don't even. I have friends around here because when I do have conversations, they look dumb for not pursuing or not realizing that unless they just want to stay in mediocrity, which is the American way. I'm just kidding. That's the one thing about America, is that it usually rewards innovation, except in my case, a sacrificial lamb for the Star Factory Idle Army. Area 51, if you would. So, and I always think there will be a place for America. I would like to like for there to be some other forms of leadership. Louisiana put Caesar's Superdome. If Louisiana had a Caesar, for some other form of leadership, not to mention the Supreme Council to help guide the state, come up with ideas. My Louisiana Latin America Economic Evolutionary Conference would help build trade when Louisiana is about to hit a depressive area whenever the oil and gas industry dries up. and electric cars take over. It's just a matter of time. And I'm trying to prepare them for the future, and they don't seem to care because they're drunk gamblers. I think they think, since they sold their soul to the United States, that they're going to get jobs from their other parts of the country or something. I don't know. But then I came up with the idea when I was living in Aspen last time with satellite cities. Get nations to build satellite cities, and it's good for trade. Basically, find businesses that are willing to relocate, that have trade, to build trade bridges. Then they build a city from scratch with that country's architecture, culture, cuisine, turn it into a tourist destination, really a treasure, and not to mention the business that would generate between the two entities. So I wanted to build 10 to 20, and this could be a thing that could spread all over the world. Satellite cities, it could be an interesting concept to add depth to states or countries. So, well, I think I've gone enough. I will hopefully, I'm here by myself enjoying the 4th of July, so I guess it looks like a day of watching Netflix.